Hello there.
Hello there.
Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
And today we are back with episode 107 of Star Wars in the Galaxy. We are recording this. We're actually doing a double recording week. We're recording this. This is going to come out after hyperspace, but we're recording this before hyperspace, just as a little editorial note. Because it's good to keep that continuity up there. But yeah, we are covering this week. We are covering 3 episodes in our chronological rewatch of Star Wars: The Bad Batch Season 2, Metamorphosis, The Outpost, and Pabu. 3, I think, just hard-hitting episodes. And like 2 of them, spoilers, 2 of the 3 of them are in my top 5 of this season.
Close enough for me as well.
So yeah, and the other one is probably top 10, probably just barely misses out. So this season is just fantastic for me, and I think Jacob has enjoyed it too. I don't want to speak for you or anything, but actually let me just there we go.
All right, there we go.
But yeah, I don't want to speak for you, but I think we've both enjoyed this season heartily.
Yes, I have heartily enjoyed this season. Just like season 1, I think it takes for me, I don't know what it is about the Bad Batch. For me, both times it took a rewatch.
Oh, for
to
me,
really love it.
It took a rewatch for season 1 for me. For season 2, I think season 2. So I think everything that Bad Batch season 1 does good, season 2 does better.
Yeah, hard to argue with that.
Yeah,
hard to argue with that.
But let's get into some summaries. So
in Metamorphosis, we open on a wrecked, burning starship floating through space. Something very, very bad has happened to this ship. We don't know what yet. There's one clone commando making their way through the halls before getting eaten by a mysterious creature who we don't see on screen. Cut to Wayland, the Mount Tantiss facility. Dr. Hemlock. This is our introduction to Dr. Hemlock, right?
Yeah, our introduction to Dr. Royce Hemlock. Yeah,
he has arrived. He has arrived on Wayland, on Mount Tantiss, and he is the chief. He seems to be. He's like the chief. He's the chief scientist of this. He's mysterious.
Taken over the facility.
Yeah, he's the chief of the Tantiss program. So he goes and he talks to a captive prisoner, none other than Nala Se. He tries to convince Nala Se to. He tells Nala Se, your work has survived. We'd love to have you come back and work. He says it a little less nicely than that, but the sentiment is there. To which Nala Se says, screw you, the Empire just destroyed my entire home city and 90% of all Kaminoans. I'm not feeling I think the word she uses is, I'm not feeling particularly motivated right now. Something along those lines, which I thought was very funny.
Where was it? Dang it. I know what Emperor Palpatine seeks to accomplish, and he will not have my cooperation.
That is a great line.
Yeah, by the way, not 90%. I think more than 90%, because it is said that the only 2 Kaminoans alive in the universe right now are Nala Se and Lama Su.
Really? Wow.
Because they say, because at the end of the episode, but we'll get to this, but at the end of the episode, they're like, are there any other left? And they say, no, only but go ahead with the rest of the episode.
So elsewhere, the Bad Batch are in hyperspace on the Marauder. They're talking to Sid. The Bad Batch is furious at Sid for pretty much abandoning them when they were stranded on an unfamiliar planet. To which Sid basically says, well, you're alive now, aren't you? What's the big deal? Sid asks them to do one more job for her. They negotiate a better rate, with the Bad Batch kind of thinking that it's going to be their last job for Sid. So Sid sends them the coordinates to this downed ship that they are going to go and salvage. So they follow the coordinates to this new planet. They see there's a village on the planet, and they find the crashed ship. They notice that the ship is completely unmarked. The plot thickens. They explore this crashed ship, the same one that we saw obviously in the first scene. They don't find any of the crew, but they realize they see claw marks. They see the carnage that this mysterious creature has created, and they realize we're dealing with something else here. And eventually they find the creature that was causing this. It is actually a much smaller Zillo Beast Yes, that same Zillo Beast from those episodes of the Clone Wars.
Well, not the exact same.
Not the exact same one, but like that creature, that
well,
species.
actually, yes, technically the exact same one, but we'll get to that.
Okay, yeah, well, because it's cloned.
Yeah, because
it's cloned. This whole thing is it's part of the cloning thing. So the Zillo Beast busts out of the ship and it runs off. The Bad Batch find it. The Bad Batch chase it and they find it feeding on electricity from the village's power generators. And that's when we realize, whoa, the Zillo Beast feeds on power. It was a tiny juvenile Zillo Beast. Now it's full grown. This thing is fucking 300 feet tall. Oh my god. So they have to hunt down the Zillo Beast, but the Empire arrives, of course. And the Empire arrives and they do manage to subdue the Zillo Beast. So the Empire retrieves the Zillo Beast, and the Bad Batch escapes with new knowledge of the cloning program, and they're on the ship. That's when Tech says the Empire didn't destroy Kamino because they wanted to destroy cloning. They destroyed Kamino because they wanted to control cloning.
Yep.
It ends with that ominous.
It doesn't end there.
Doesn't end there. Yes. We have another special guest coming back on Mount Tantiss. Guess who else is still alive? Lama Su. So Hemlock is saying, look, Hemlock says, Lama Su, look, Nala say she's not very forthcoming with her cooperation right now. How do I, basically in exchange for his freedom, Lama Su tells Hemlock about the existence of Omega, and now Omega is the key to getting Nala say to do what he wants. And that's where it ends.
Yep. In the Outpost, Crosshair is waiting at a spaceport. Crosshair waits at a spaceport and he hears some clone troopers talking about being forced into retirement. He then gets transferred to the planet of Barton IV under the command of Lieutenant Nolan. Nolan and Crosshair and some other troops, of course, get to Barton IV and they see it's a very snowy, icy planet, and they see the base that the Empire has on Barton IV almost completely desolate. Like there's almost no one there. There are 3 clones left: Mayday, Hex, and Veach, and they've been trying to protect some cargo from raiders that keep attacking the base. Nolan is very clear about his dislike of clones, saying before he departs to Barton IV that he doesn't like used equipment. So so Mayday explains to Crosshair and Nolan that basically the reason why the raiders have taken a lot of the cargo and the reason why they've been so vulnerable is that they've put out requests for reinforcements and new equipment, but the Empire has ignored all of them. So they're stuck to fend for themselves. Mayday takes that as a sign of personal weakness, where Crosshair sees something different. The raiders attack the base while they're there. Hex and Veach both die, leaving Crosshair and Mayday as the only 2 remaining clones left at the base. So what was I gonna say? So Mayday and Crosshair go out on a mission to get the crates back. Mayday has to disarm a pressure mine when Crosshair steps on it. They get the gear back by fighting out the assailants, and then they find what's in the cargo that they weren't allowed to know, and it's new TK trooper armor.
Literal plastic armor is what they were sacrificing their lives for.
They were risking their lives for the armor of their replacements. Unfortunately, there then comes an avalanche that almost kills Crosshair and Mayday and brutally wounds both of them. They make their way back to the base, and Crosshair tells Nolan that he has to help Mayday before he dies, and Nolan declines, and Crosshair gets so mad at him that he shoots the commander in the back. Crosshair then falls unconscious probably from the hypothermia that he was experiencing in the cold, and then wakes up on the planet of Wayland. He is in Mount Tantiss, being operated on by, unbeknownst to him, his sister, Emery Carr, and being run tests on by the Empire on the planet of Wayland. And that's the Outpost. In Pabu, This starts out with the Batch and Phee in a club where she's trying to make a deal with a bounty hunter named Lance Crowder. The deal goes awry and they have to escape the club with their lives. Then they reveal on the ship in hyperspace that they haven't been talking to Sid for at least 20 rotations, they say. And Phee offers them refuge on the planet of Pabu, which is a quaint little island planet that she has made a home away from home for herself on, along with her friend Shepazard and his daughter Liana. All of the people who live on Pabu are refugees from the Empire, and the Empire doesn't know about Pabu at all, leading Hunter and Wrecker and Tech to question whether they should stay on Pabu permanently. They have a nice relaxing time there. Liana and Omega go out on a boat to watch the sunset. As the sunset, unfortunately, Pabu is hit by a once in 30 years tsunami. And the rest of the episode is Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, and Phee trying to get all of the people who were living on the lower area of Pabu up to safety so that they could survive the tsunami. No lives were lost. Everybody was okay, and they're going to need some time to rebuild. But it seems like a pretty good, secure place for the Batch to rest for a little bit. We have a lot of stuff to get into. We have two action-packed episodes, and then Pabu, which is haunting. But yeah, let's do this. Let's start with Metamorphosis. And wow, do we have an episode to start with? The Zillo Beast returns.
Yes, the Zillo Beast returns. We got Royce Hemlock. We got Dr. Hemlock in the house.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Zillo Beast first.
All right, let's talk about the Zillo Beast.
The Zillo Beast continues a great Bad Batch tradition that I love. It had been 13 years since we'd seen an on-screen Zillo Beast.
Wow.
13 years. Building on the Bad Batch concept of not seeing things for a decade after their last appearance in the Clone Wars and then seeing them in the Bad Batch. Yeah, it's been 13 years since we've seen Zillo Beast. And one of the things I love about this episode so much is how it continues the tradition of basically doing anything with the Zillo Beast by making a Godzilla movie in Star Wars.
Yes, absolutely.
I love when Star Wars does genre stuff like this, where like this is even I'd say more than the Zillo Beast episodes in the Clone Wars. I would say that this is a horror-based episode. You know, all of the clues we get, all of the Wrecker getting the slime on his hands, the claw marks, the clone commando being yanked up. That all screams horror to me. And I love how much suspense we get and how much like the beast is out episode.
Oh yeah, we definitely get that.
Yeah.
I do love when Star Wars does things like that. Yeah, that is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Here's a fun fact about the show. When we were talking about the Zillo Beast arc on this show, this episode hadn't come out yet. So when we heard, oh, we're gonna clone the beast from Dr. Bowl in that arc, we had no idea what was going to happen to it.
That's actually a fun callback.
And now we do.
They actually followed through.
They actually followed
through.
They
cloned the beast.
Clone the beast. Yeah, it's a truly horrifying thing. But yeah, if we want to go with the beginning, we finally, after this is the 11th episode of the season, finally we've been waiting. We've got a little bit of the mystery. We've been waiting the entire season to find out what the fuck is happening on Wayland.
Palpatine's cloning shit.
Palpatine is cloning. We don't know everything, but Palpatine's cloning shit. And we knew like that probably
we kind of already knew that.
We kind of already knew that, but like at least we now have a few specifics as to what's going on over there. But did you realize it took us 11 episodes in season 2 to get to Wayland?
Yeah, it took us a while.
It took us 11 episodes, over half the season, to get to Wayland. I'm so glad we finally got there, and I'm so excited that we spend. It's the first 2 episodes, Metamorphosis and the Outpost, and then I believe Tipping Point is also spent on Wayland.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we spent a little bit of time there on this season. Hope we get to spend time there, obviously, next season.
Yeah, I want them to fully pull back the curtain.
Yes,
I want to see all the crazy next level shit.
I want to see the weird stuff. I want to see exactly what Dr. Hemlock's doing. Dr. Royce he's our new main villain for the show.
He is,
and I gotta say, I love him.
How do you feel about that?
I like him a lot more than Rampart.
he's definitely more. He's more unique than Rampart.
Yeah,
We've seen a lot of Rampart type Imperial officer type characters.
Yeah,
We haven't seen someone like
Hemlock
him
is
before.
Hemlock is a unique sci-fi-esque villain.
Yeah.
He is this evil scientist, but he knows that he's evil. That's what I love about Hemlock, is that he's fully self-aware. He knows what he's doing is fucking crazy.
Well, I think he's kind of like I mean, obviously we don't know too much about his character yet, but it seems a little bit like he's it's possible that he's like just like a Palpatine super fan, like a Palpatine fanatic. Based on what he says to Nala says now it serves a new purpose, a higher purpose.
Yeah,
Palpatine's purpose.
This said tipping point. They're gonna research a bit. Bad Batch is gonna research a bit about Hemlock. Basically, I think we find this out in the next episode. Basically, Hemlock was like kicked off a science board, like a science association in the Republic, basically because his experiments were deemed too extreme and too like ghastly. And Palpatine then, when the Empire took over, was like, experienced and extreme and ghastly. I'll take that. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, because I think he's like one in Legends, he would be one of those like Palpatine fanatics on Biss,
Oh, absolutely.
And like he would be like he would be a Bissian for sure. No, Bissian is different, but he would be on Biss.
He would be on Biss. He like if he was fanatical enough, I'm sure he could end up on Exegol in canon.
For those who might not know, in Legends, Biss was a world in the deep core. That was kind of Palpatine's personal retreat, where he had legions of fanatic cult followers, and he just did a bunch of crazy like dark side magic shit.
It's Legends Exegol.
It's Legends Exegol, but like less zombie.
But like he does,
but it's you're right. It's pretty much
back to life on Biss and Legends.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same shit. Actually, it's the same.
It's basically the same plan.
So I'm saying either that or he kind of actually. I was gonna say though, Hemlock is like a science version of Crosshair. We kind of see throughout the season Crosshair kind of I think at some point Crosshair sort of figures out or realizes that what the Empire is doing is wrong, that he's kind of on the wrong side. But Crosshair can't imagine any life other than being a soldier.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to get Outpost. And he'll do anything to keep that life, even if he knows what he's doing is immoral. I think Hemlock is the same way. He wants to do his experiments. He loves science. He loves the crazy cloning stuff. He knows Palpatine's probably doing some sinister stuff. He doesn't care because he loves it.
For what my take is?
What's your take?
I think that Hemlock is the dark inversion of Dr. Pershing from The Mandalorian. Because we see in the third season that all Pershing wants to do with his science is help people.
Yeah.
And that's the primary goal. But this is an Imperial scientist who wants to use his science to conquer, to do whatever the fuck he wants, to play God in a certain sense.
Yeah.
This is the dark version of Dr. Pershing.
Yeah.
Dr. Pen Pershing. Because of course it's called that. But yeah. By the way, let's talk about the fact that Dr. Hemlock, Hemlock's a kind of poison, right?
Yeah. The name is very funny as well.
And the part in Tipping Point where he builds up a resistance to a type of poison. Dr. Hemlock builds up a resistance to poison. I mean, come on, Star Wars. Let's be real here. Dr. Hemlock building up a resistance to poison. Like, calm down, Star Wars. We get it. He's evil.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah, but I love Nalace's warning about Palpatine's project. She basically says, "I know what you're trying to do. It won't work." I love that little moment, and I hope it'll ultimately be prophetic, because we know what happens to Palpatine.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all this, because it's still, we don't know, and I love how Bad Batch is teasing us with this, because, and this is the interesting thing too, just because Gideon's plot at the end of Mandalorian, because we thought that Gideon's plot could be related to Palpatine coming back in Rise.
Yeah.
And then it was revealed it wasn't.
Yeah.
But Bad Batch relating to Rise and how Palpatine came back is still very much on the table.
Yeah, for sure.
And I love having that, still having that element, and I love it as much as I'm annoyed by it, where it's just like, I know what Emperor Palpatine seeks to accomplish, and he will not have my cooperation. I'm like, what does he seek to accomplish? I know he wants to clone himself and then come back to life, but how the hell does that have to do with the Zillo Beast?
Yeah.
You know, we could see how he might be interested in something like force sensitive cloning, like Gideon is in in the Mandalorian. But but we don't know what the Zillo Beast has to do with it. But is it just about the armor?
But do we think that maybe Gideon, maybe these two things are related somehow? I don't know. Maybe Gideon swooped in, because it seems like obviously within Gideon has like the Imperial remnant, but like, while Palpatine was alive, he wouldn't have let someone else pursue the same thing he was. He wouldn't have let Gideon do what he did. So maybe Gideon kind of swooped in and took some of Palpatine's sauce and technology.
But Gideon was trying to do it for himself.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Palpatine wouldn't have let him do that.
So that's what I'm saying. That Mando doesn't tie directly into Rise of Skywalker, because it's not part of Palpatine's plan. It becomes part of Gideon's plan, which is fine. But you know, it's not a specific link to Rise, and I thought it might be a link to Rise, but it isn't, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, then we have not sure what's got you all twisted up in knots. I'm like, really, Sid?
No, Sid in this episode is kind of, this is the last straw for Sid.
This is really the last straw for Sid. I'm like I told you last episode that was the last mission they did for Sid in the Crossing. I lied. It was this one. This is the last mission they do for Sid in Metamorphosis. And frankly, this
couldn't have come too soon.
This one they got something personal. This one they got at least a bit of personal benefit, because they got to figure out who Dr. Hemlock is, and Hemlock's going to be an important part of the season. They don't know that yet, but they will. But
I don't know. I kind of wish that at some point in the second season they had more of a moment of closure. No, closure is not the right word, but I just wish that the Bad Batch had really, at some point, really confronted Sid about how badly she treated them, because it gets pretty. This is pretty uncool of her.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I understand that. It's tough because they don't have a stable foundation under them, and Sid was the closest thing. And it's funny that just when they don't have a stable foundation, Pabu comes in and Phee comes into Pabu.
Yeah.
And I'm, hopefully they could use that as a stable foundation at some point. But, we'll get to Pabu and we'll get to the tragic nature of Pabu when we get to it. But should we get to the Zillo Beast?
Let's get to the Zillo Beast. Absolutely.
The Zillo Beast is back. We get a lot of references from the Zillo Beast arc. Tech identifies it as the beast that attacked Coruscant during the war, which of course we saw in the Clone Wars.
Of course we did, yeah.
And I love that he figured that out, because of course that would be, because the stuff on Malastare, wouldn't be directly relevant, but the fact that it attacked Coruscant during the war, that's relevant to the batch.
Yeah.
Yeah. We obviously see Tech sees designs in the Imperial database for armor plating. So there was plans to, I assume, do Stormtrooper armor with Zillo Beast plating.
Yeah,
which
that is. I mean, that was the implication in the Clone Wars.
Well, yeah, that was with Clone Troopers, but apparently now it's going to be with Stormtroopers.
Yeah,
which is maybe one of the scariest things I can imagine, because it doesn't matter how good shots they are. You cannot kill them.
Too bad just like invincible Stormtroopers.
It would be horrifying. And they don't. The Bad Batch doesn't do shit against the Zillo Beast. They don't do shit against it.
Yeah.
They even when it's just a little, even when it's just small, even before it absorbs all the electricity and grows bigger, they can't do anything to it. Like we see fully trained Jedi like Anakin Skywalker and Yoda and Aayla Secura go up against in the Clone Wars. That can't do shit.
They can't do
The
shit.
only
Yeah.
defeat in both times is by doing they do the gas thing in TCW also.
Yeah.
They do the poison gas thing, but
Giant ray gun.
the way they defeated in both Clone Wars and now is Anakin's strategy, which I love the fact that it's technically using a strategy from Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, totally.
Which is the stun rays to its joints. But that's not even to kill it. That's just to put it into a slumber. So, yeah. Zillo Beast armor plating would be a huge problem. Like, such a huge problem, which is why I think probably something's going to happen to that research and the clone Zillo Beasts, just because, why didn't we see that? Why wasn't every Stormtrooper we saw in Star Wars Rebels, the original trilogy, Rogue One? Why didn't they have Zillo Beast armor?
Yeah. We'll see. We'll find out.
Yeah.
I mean, and Lama Su kind of hints at that, in the episode when he says it must be frustrating to have all the resources you need, yet lack the expertise to achieve your goals. So I think ultimately, if we no Zillo Beast armor, ultimately a lot of this cloning stuff, at least for now, for the Empire era, doesn't really pan out. We have a guess as to why.
Yeah.
The people who needed to cooperate didn't cooperate.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's scary. Everything it almost more horrifying than the beast itself is the implications of what the Empire could do with the thing.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of reminds me of, in Legends, the old Sith, like the old Sith had the thing where they would create giant monsters and do the shape casting thing or whatever, like Palpatine could definitely do some stuff like that with the Zillo Beast,
Imagine we already got Boba riding the Rancor in Book of Boba Fett.
Palpatine riding the Zillo Beast.
I was just gonna, and I think we're also gonna get Bo at some point riding a Mythosaur in The Mandalorian.
That would be crazy.
Imagine Palpatine or somebody riding a Zillo Beast. That would be like Boba Fett riding a Rancor is scary. Bo riding a Mythosaur is very scary. Palpatine riding a Zillo Beast would be basically invincible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That would be one of the scariest things you could possibly see in the galaxy. And the galaxy is a really scary place.
Yeah. Every time a new show comes out, there's more horrifying shit.
Yeah. But the Zillo Beast, I think, yeah. One of the other things I like, I just love the batch's reactions to the Zillo Beast and how quickly they realize how much danger they're in. Because when she curls up against Wrecker and she goes, "It ate the crew."
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, baby girl, y'all are in danger.
Yeah.
Y'all are in danger.
It kind of that part. Omega is a very fun tool, I think, for the creators and the writers to kind of reality check the viewers, because as Star Wars fans watching Star Wars, we're so used to so much batshit crazy stuff happening all the time. But
the batch too.
But yes, a giant beast that can eat clone troopers is very scary, actually, even though as the viewer, it might be a little bit like,
yeah, and to the batch too. The batch, they often believe their own hype. And they're very good, but they're far from invincible.
Yeah.
So when they can get to take a step back and be like, oh my god, this thing attacked Coruscant during the war, and it tore up buildings like nothing. And it took several Jedi and a whole shit ton of poison gas to bring it down.
We're in deep shit now.
We're in danger. We are in... This entire episode is The Simpsons meme. Looks around. I'm in danger.
Yeah. No, absolutely it is.
So, yeah, I just love what the Beast brings to the story. Anything else before I get to my last sort of thing?
Not really. I don't have a lot to say about this episode, to be honest. Yeah, I'll talk about my overall thoughts in a minute.
For me, there's one other part of this episode that I find really interesting, which is that obviously the beast attacks the town on that planet. What's the Empire's response to that?
They don't care about the town.
They do care about the town, actually.
I mean, I guess in a sense, when they destroy all the witnesses.
They arrest all the witnesses.
Yeah, but like,
so the town committed the unpardonable sin of seeing an Imperial experiment that leaked.
Yeah.
And they've gotten arrested for that one. They've gotten arrested for a ship that ended up crashing on a planet that happened to be theirs. This is fascism, everybody. This is fascism.
Quintessential empire.
Yeah. Like, they cannot let people know that they're cloning this beast. So they arrest all of the citizens of that town for no other reason than they happen to be at the wrong place in the wrong time.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's really like they nailed it, because I think that's exactly the writers nailed it, because that's absolutely what I think the Empire would do. But
yeah,
let's not forget how ridiculously horrifying that is.
Yeah.
Just because they saw the beast. Now they're getting put in Imperial prison, which, you know, the one thing we know about Imperial prisons are they're not the most pleasant of places. They're not the most pleasant of prisons, even. So, yeah. What are your overall thoughts about this episode, since you kind of alluded to that?
Overall, I didn't like this episode. I wouldn't say I dislike this episode. Just the things that were hinted at in this episode, the little nuggets of awesomeness in this episode were awesome. I loved, the hints at the cloning, kind of peeling back the layers, of the big mystery, getting to see Tantiss, getting to see Lama Su talk to Hemlock talk to Nalase. But I didn't find the actual main meat of the episode to be that compelling.
I understand that. I think that I very much like this episode. I think it's probably a top 10 of the season, not quite a top 5 for me. For me, what I love about this episode is that it is one of the more lore based episodes.
Yeah, that's true.
And I like when they do some lore based episodes. I understand that emotion and story and plot and all that kind of stuff, and the characters' feelings and delivering like good storytelling are more important. But every once in a while, where they drop in some, okay, here's how the Empire's doing this, and here's what they're doing with that. I appreciate that. Is all I'm saying. And I love the horror vibes of this episode. I'm a very big fan of this episode. It is my least favorite of these three by a pretty decent margin.
Me too. Big margin for me.
But I don't think it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I like it quite a bit.
I don't think it's bad. I just think in Star Wars, whenever the conflict, and I know this is for this episode, it is the main conflict. Whenever the conflict becomes a man versus beast type of conflict, I feel like for me at least, it gets very boring very quickly.
I understand that, and for most situations, I would agree with you. But the fact that it is the Zillo Beast, and the fact that we haven't seen this thing in over a decade, I think makes it a bit more novel and a bit more special.
That is true. That is true. That it does have that going for it. I do love the Zillo Beast. I love that they brought that back,
and that it is so hard to take down.
Yeah.
And that nobody has ever on screen killed a Zillo Beast.
Yeah.
Or actually, I think Dr. Bull killed the one in TCW, but that was in a controlled environment where she basically like did a fatal injection, basically.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever took down slayed a Zillo Beast. Yeah. That's just never happened in on screen. I think Kylo Ren faced one in a comic once. I'm not sure whether that Zillo Beast was killed or not. I'm curious. Let's see. Was a Zillo Beast killed on? Actually, yes. Kylo Ren did kill it.
Wow. I guess that just goes to show Kylo Ren's They really wanted to show Kylo Ren's prowess because that we've seen the Zillo Beast. That is no mean feat.
Yeah, so Kylo Ren killed the Zillo Beast in a comic. Yeah, but let's get to the Outpost. Let's get to the
Outpost. This is where things really kick up. This is a hard hitting episode.
For me, is where things kick up for the season.
Fair enough. I meant for this trio of episodes,
yeah, but the Outpost is another Crosshair episode, and of course, judging by the other Crosshair episode of the season, the Solitary Clone, we're in for a good ride here. And I agree that it is a good ride. Already, did you notice the bass drums? Did you notice those bass drops?
You bet I did.
Like they were dropping those things like candy in this episode.
I love the Bad Batch bass drops.
Like
they're tasty.
I noticed it more than I ever had. I'm like, there we go again. Things are about to get really intense.
Yeah.
We first see that scene that I mentioned earlier about the clones being forced into retirement.
Yeah, I think that's a great scene.
The shit is hitting the fan. It's actually happening now. Due to the Defense Recruitment Act passing in Truth and Consequences, this is happening. The clones are being rendered useless. It's
right there, yeah.
They're no longer necessary for the Empire. And that's kind of the theme of this episode. And then we meet one of the worst characters in Star Wars, and I don't mean worst written, I mean worst. Lieutenant Nolan. Fuck that. I mean, really fuck that guy.
Most infuriating character. Easy.
One of the most infuriating characters in Star Wars canon.
I mean, he's just an asshole.
Remember, he says that thing about I don't like used equipment. Remember when Crosshair and Mayday come back at the end of the episode?
Yeah.
He's practically shoving those TK troopers out of the way to look at them.
Yeah.
He doesn't like the new equipment either.
Yeah. I mean, he is the personification, literally personifying the Empire's attitude of don't look at people, don't look at human beings, don't look at individuals, only look at groups, institutions, numbers, and assets.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. It's fantastic how much Nolan personifies, I think even more than Rampart does, the Empire's specific take on fascism. I think Nolan is an infuriatingly accurately written character. Yeah, so we meet Mayday. And Mayday is one of the main characters of this episode. And I love this idea of this grizzled clone vet. I love the idea of him being one of the people to change Crosshair's mind about this whole thing.
I mean, he would be such a cool character. I mean, he is such a cool character. It would be even cooler if everything surrounding him wasn't so depressing. This whole episode.
Oh, absolutely. He
is great.
The short end of the stick.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's no other way of saying it. He gets absolutely robbed in this episode. One of the first things he says that immediately caught my attention with him was that he echoes Rex's quote from the Clone Wars movie, where Nolan demands respect from him, and he goes, "In my experience, respect is something to be earned."
That's okay. Experience outranks
everything. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Nolan's in over his head with this mission. Mayday knows that, and I think Nolan knows that too. And and there's that part where he goes, "So, how many missions have you commanded?" I thought so.
Yeah.
So, but Nolan doesn't care about that, and the Empire doesn't care about that because, again, they view everything as assets. And yeah, it's just the word that comes to mind when I'm thinking of this episode is just brutal. It's just a brutal episode. There's this sense of hopelessness and despair to this episode.
Yeah, this episode is honestly for me it's kind of hard. Like it's so brutal that it's kind of hard to watch.
I totally agree with that.
Like the moment when Crosshair steps on the mine and
yeah.
What is Mayday's reaction? He says, "I don't want to have to carry another body back. I'll disarm it."
Well, that's
Like-
to that's a response to Crosshair's earlier quote to him, where they see one of the raiders dead on the ground, and Crosshair goes, "No point in carrying dead weight."
Yeah.
And then Maida goes, "Remind me not to die on your watch."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really kind of Crosshairs.
Do
we want to get into that? Like,
yeah. What I actually love about that quote specifically, I think it cuts right to the heart of the episode, which is the Crosshair. However much he tries to convince himself otherwise, he's not one of them. He's not an Imperial. He cannot be an Imperial. At the end of the day, however prickly he may be, he cares for people, so he cannot be an Imperial.
yeah, I think that this episode is kind of it's obviously Crosshair's tipping point, where this has been building up, and this is really the final nail in the coffin. This is the coup de grace for him, where throughout the season, both the seasons, we see Crosshair pretty much, Bad Batch is adapt. It's all about adapt or die. It's all about adaptation. We see Crosshair pretty much refusing to adapt as a Batch adapts. He doesn't want to change his ways. He doesn't want to change his thinking. He just wants to keep going with, good soldiers follow orders. I serve the Republic, and now I serve the Empire. He's finally confronted with a situation where he can't conscience that anymore, because he does have a conscience, even though he tries to suppress it.
Yeah.
And what we see is that he's so blinded by his need to live life a certain way, his need to feel like he's serving something, even if that's the Empire. And this is kind of his rude awakening, that the Empire really doesn't care. Because I think in the back of his mind, he maybe is thinking, I'm special. Like, I'm not going to be decommissioned like
that's another one,
because I'm Crosshair. I'm super skilled, and I have my special talents and everything. Then he realizes, oh shit, the Empire does not give one single hoot, and that's kind of
that I love that you brought up the whole special thing. I know that I put this up here. Let's see. I'm trying to find where I put this in my notes. I think I said something like Crosshair is. Oh yeah, yeah. I love that. So yeah, Crosshair thinks he's special. Crosshair thinks he's different, and he thinks that can get him with the Empire. But just by the fact that he's a clone, if nothing else, by the fact that he's a clone, he's automatically lumped in with all the other clones, and he's automatically inferior.
Yeah.
And this is the episode where he fully realizes that everything that the Empire is propagandizing, both in the clone troopers' heads via inhibitor chip and to the larger galaxy, is a complete lie.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of, yeah. And also we see him standing up for regular clones too, which is something that he hasn't done. That's something that Crosshair haven't done before. In fact, he's shown a lot of contempt for them. It's really, this is like for Crosshair, it's kind of I stared into the bonfire until I too was on fire kind of moment. Is that the right way the quote goes? I don't know.
I don't know
the
quote specifically, but yeah.
I don't know. Shout out to Jared from the Nerd Academy podcast, because I was talking with him and Eli and some folks the other day, and I think he was the one who introduced that. Like he was the one who introduced that to my lexicon. I like that a lot.
Like a Jared quote. That definitely sounds like a Jared quote.
Yeah.
That sounds like Jared and Epic Confrontations, actually. Anyway.
Wait, did you just dab?
Yes,
a
I
little
did.
Bit?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, you just dabbed. Okay.
Yes, I did.
It's 2020. You just did it again. It's 2023. That's the first dab I've seen in like 5 years. That's awesome.
One of the other things I love hearing from Mayday, and we've heard this from a lot of clones this season. We've heard this from the Bad Batch constantly through the show. We've heard this from many clones this season. Cannot say I ever thought much about the war ending.
Yeah.
Until it did. It turns out you train soldiers only to think about war and never about peace. They'll be confused after the war ends, and peace is all they're left with.
Yeah. I mean,
You trained them for one thing, and now their one thing is gone. What do you expect them to be doing?
yeah. And we even see this with the Bad Batch where, I mean, we'll get to this in Pabu, but Phee basically says, you guys might be really good soldiers, but you have no social skills. Omega has no social skills. She needs to learn social skills.
And yeah, what other
and life
skills? What other skills does Omega have other than military skills? Yeah, absolutely. That's 100%. That's 100% on about Pabu. Yeah, yeah. Do we want to talk about the reveal about what the cargo is?
Yeah. Because this is really the turning point.
Gear. We've been risking our lives to recover equipment we could have been wearing this whole time. It's not clone trooper gear. Right. New toys for their shiny new military. And we get the scraps.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Mayday, I love you. Stop doing our job for us. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's another one of those moments where it's just like, yeah. The Empire is making these clones fight for the armor and the supplies of their replacements. There is no better metaphor for the Imperial philosophy than that, I think. Everyone's expendable. Everyone's an asset. Everybody's useful until that's what Nolan says right before he shoots him. Get back to work while you're still useful.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Empire. Ultimately, everyone is an asset except for Palpatine.
Yeah, that was something I said at the end of the episode, which is that, and just to jump a bit ahead, when Crosshair assassinates Nolan, it's one of the most satisfying feelings of that episode. But that for me quickly faded away once I realized that Nolan's death means nothing for the Empire.
Yeah.
Because he's expendable too.
Yeah. They don't care. He's a cog in the machine, just like he matters as much to the Empire as Crosshair does.
Absolutely.
He's replaceable,
And I wrote my notes. No life in the Empire truly matters except its emperor. This is the galaxy that Palpatine has created, and thus it is the galaxy that everyone else has to live in.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you if we jump ahead to the Rise of Skywalker, because I do think this was part of Palpatine's plans. Because, there's that line in the Rise of Skywalker that I often forget about. I think a lot of people forget about because it's not really relevant to the film's plot, but I think it's actually an interesting thematic idea. In the message that Hux steals, it says in 18 hours, attacks on all free worlds will begin.
Yeah.
And we see some attacks on all free worlds, like the attack on Kajini. What do they do on Kajini? Remind me of that one again.
Blow that shit up. They
blow the planet up. So I think it's a reasonable assumption that Palpatine was going to try and destroy as many planets he could with his Zeiston class Star Destroyer. His goal wasn't to rule the galaxy anymore. His goal was to destroy.
I mean, at that point, he and all the Final Order, they kind of just descended into madness.
Yeah. But if you think about that goal with Palpatine's philosophy, it actually makes a ton of sense. Because Palpatine's like, well, no life matters except for mine anymore. So why do we need all these other people then?
I mean, that's the Palpatine mentality. And he is the reason it is all this way.
Yeah.
The Sith ideology is the reason that Star Wars is the way it is. You even have, even before, Operation Cinder was the whole thing with the Star Destroyers.
That's a good point.
In Rise of Skywalker is really just Operation Cinder 2.0 on a much bigger scale. It's okay, if I can't have the galaxy, I'm going to make sure no one else gets to enjoy it. I'm burning it to the ground.
Wait. Where's O.C. Silbeck? Remember O.C. Silbeck?
Yeah. What do you say?
If I don't have the information, that it'll die with you.
Okay, what was that his official death? We saw the deleted scenes where there was like 5
Oh,
different.
official death. That was the official death.
So not one of the 5 unofficial alternate deaths.
Well, that was the official. That was the
Okay,
official
okay.
death. That was not one of the alt deaths.
Yeah.
I swear.
Absolutely wild that they waited that long to pick one that they had like rendering stuff. They were like, we can't pick. Let's just make 5 alternate deaths, and then we'll wing it.
We'll figure out.
We'll
We'll
fucking
figure out
wing
what
it.
we want.
By Dave Filoni.
If you're wondering what we're talking about, this is from our episode a while back from deleted scenes of seasons 3 and 4 of Clone Wars, early May of this year. But yeah, but I love that we got to the to the gear, and then before the avalanche happens, I want to get to this final quote. We're good soldiers. We followed orders. And for what?
I mean, yeah, that's kind of like the I mean that's just like the finally it's turning around on that.
Yeah.
Where so much time good soldiers follow orders, good soldiers follow orders.
Yeah.
This is like the payoff.
Going to defend good soldiers follows, or like the inhibitor chips to you. Okay. Because I think it is an interesting part of the story where, because that was never them saying that.
But wouldn't it have been more powerful if it was?
I think it would have been powerful in a different way. But I think the idea that the Empire literally planted the propaganda into their brains until they believed something that was not even their own thought, that's scary.
Yeah.
And the tragedy that Mayday probably never even realized that it was propaganda. That he was hoodwinked into believing that it was all in his own. I think that's terrifying.
Yeah.
In an extreme, in a weird psychological way. And there's the avalanche.
I mean, this is the moment. Crosshair's helmet literally gets knocked off in the avalanche. It literally is
knocked off.
The representation of the facelessness of the Empire.
Yeah. I said the crushing weight of the mission literally tumbles down on them.
It's super symbolic.
Yeah,
it's super duper symbolic.
And imagine here's the other thing. And I think this is. I like the contrast of this episode in Pabu, because Pabu is all about community.
Yeah,
but there's no such community in the Empire. The Empire don't care. If you had to ask me to describe this episode as concisely as I could possibly do, the Empire DGAF. The Empire don't give a fuck. That's what this episode is. The Empire don't give a fuck. Imagine that avalanche happening with a batch. Imagine how different it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think in the back of his mind, Crosshair always kind of knows the Bad Batch. This would be different if I was still with the Bad Batch. This wouldn't have happened.
And did you notice, by the way, that he lied to Mayday?
No, what did he say?
He said, when Mayday was disarming the pressure plate, and he was asking Crosshair about his former squad, he went, Lone Force 99. And then Mayday asked him what happened to them, and he said, they're gone. Insinuating that they were dead.
I mean, I think he's not entirely lying. It's lying in the same way. It's a what I told you was true from a certain point of view type of situation. Like, to Crosshair in that moment in his life, they are gone. They're dead to him. And Crosshair has to feel that way in order to maintain his sanity with the choices that he's made. That's
what I was going to say. I'm like, I was actually going to say something very similar, which was like, are you telling Mayday that, Crosshair, or are you telling yourself?
Yeah, I couldn't have said. That's it. I couldn't have said it better myself. He's like, he has to feel that way in order to stay sane and do his job and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's horrific. It's just a brutal episode fucking props to Nathaniel Villanueva and Brad Rao for the gorgeous direction of this episode. I mean, gorgeous. The coldness of the planet mirroring the cold, uncaring nature of the Empire. Like, that's the shit right there. And of course, Jennifer Corbett wrote this episode, which, you know, I think that should put her on like a Rushmore of singles writers, I think.
This was a knockout.
It was a damn good episode. A top 5 for me.
Top 5 for you.
Top
yeah,
5.
Probably top 5 for me, given that for this season. Top 5 for me as well.
Yeah. Well, this season, top 5 for me. And spoiler, Pabu is also a top 5 for me.
Pabu's a very interesting episode.
You want to get to it?
Let's get to Pabu. It's another Phee mission.
Another Phee mission.
Phee Genoa is back.
Yep.
This time she's once again buying an ancient relic.
Yep. In a scene very reminiscent of Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom.
You know what that club is called, right?
Yes, I did. I do know what that club is called. Yeah.
What's the club called?
Club Lao Che.
You want to do the honors of explaining the reference here?
Yeah.
It's like the inverse of Club Obi-Wan, basically.
It is the inverse of Club Obi-Wan because this is a mirror of the Lao Che sequence from Temple of Doom. Anything goes, and that was named Club Obi-Wan. But this is named after the businessman, that the version of Lance Crowder in Temple of Doom, which is a guy named Lao Che. Double reference, one of my favorite references in Star Wars. Alex Damon pointed it out several times. I know he loves it. I love that little trivia detail too. I love when they do stuff like that. And of course, it's in Oramesh, so you have to go and translate it. So it's only for the really hardcore fans who will go and translate it and then realize what that means. Fantastic. Love it. Just for posterity's sake, Lance Crowder is a great Star Wars name. We get Kohuns back in Star Wars. I think the first time Kohuns have been seen
since Attack of the
on
Clones, right?
screen in Star Wars, which is another Bad Batch tradition of bringing in stuff that hadn't been seen in a decade plus.
Yep.
I'm actually curious. Let's see. Kohuns. Yeah, Kohuns hadn't been seen. There were live Kohuns. Apparently there were Kohuns there were Kohuns apparently frozen in carbonite in squadrons somewhere. But not actually like live Kohuns in Star Wars. But yeah. One of the things I like about this episode that it immediately does, especially after how certain people were talking about her in Entombed. I love how it automatically like establishes the fact that Phee, unlike Sid, is actually a good person.
Yeah, this totally changed. Like looking back on it, this episode definitely changes my perception of Phee a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still don't think what she did in the mountain with Omega and everything was cool, but this does make me feel a lot better about her overall.
She's much more of a friend to the batch, and I'm glad.
Oh yeah, no, she's a total friend of the batch. Yeah,
I'm glad that they have that.
I'm sure she's going to come back in season 3.
I'm 100% certain. I hope so. I want to see Wanda Sykes again. I want to see Phee again.
She was only in like 2 episodes, like
3.
Yeah, she wasn't actually in the show as much as
it'll be 4 or 5, I think, because she's in a few more in this season.
But she's not actually she's not actually as big a part of the show as I think we had been led to believe.
Nope. She was
based on the promotional material.
She was as big of a part of the show as Rex was, basically.
Yeah, maybe a little more.
This season. Rex was in like how many episodes? Rex was in Clone Conspiracy.
Was he in Truth and Consequences? A couple more.
And then he's in Tipping Point. I think that's it, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically they're a part of the same amount of this season, but yeah. Then we get on to Pabu, which is where the heart of the episode is, and this is spoiler. This is my favorite episode of these 3. It's probably my 3rd favorite episode in the entire season.
It's a very good episode.
Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences. And I love this episode because it hurts so goddamn much.
The whole episode is kind of saying, look at what you're missing out on, Bad Batch.
It's encapsulating this moment in time where we know that the Batch could, if they wanted to, stay there and live a life relatively free of conflict.
Yeah.
But they can't.
Yeah. They're pulled back.
Well, because here's the thing. Even though, even if they weren't necessarily pulled back into it, I would argue that the Batch's true role in the galaxy is that role of helping people who are oppressed by the Empire.
Yeah. Well,
and this is the easy way out.
Well, I think this episode is profound because a lot of times in Star Wars, I think it's kind of the message or one of the implications unintentionally becomes, fighting this fight is all that there is for people, for the people who are fighting the good fight to make things better. They have no choice. Like this is, and some of them may have no choice. They may feel like they have no choice, but in reality, it's a massive amount of sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that's very important to remember in the real world too.
Yeah, it's
and fighting the good fight.
Yeah,
a lot of the times.
Yeah,
actually is sacrifice, and we see that, and we're reminded of that here. We're reminded of what the Bad Batch are actually sacrificing.
Yeah, but it reminds me specifically, like in a weird way, and I'm not saying it's as twisted as this, but it reminds me of the end of Star Wars Rebels. It reminds me of when Palpatine gives Ezra the choice, which I don't believe was a choice.
It was some total it was some like forced illusion fuckery, obviously, but
the choice of going back through the world between worlds so he'd never be a Jedi.
Yeah,
so he could live the life he wanted with his parents, but that Palpatine would have to worry about one fewer Jedi in the universe.
Yeah.
This is a similar idea for me, is that they're tempted.
Yeah.
They can stay, but it's not the right thing to do to stay.
Yeah.
At least not long term. If they want to short term between missions, I don't think there's actually anything wrong with that. But it's it's, I forget exactly who this was. I believe this was Spock. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Like, yeah, they're serving themselves and they're serving the people of Pabu. But there are so many millions and billions of more people in the galaxy who need help.
Yeah.
And by staying on Pabu, they're abandoned. And they have the ability, with their enhanced strength and their combat training, to help people.
Yeah.
And every moment they stay on Pabu is a chance, is a moment that they're not doing that.
Yeah. They have a responsibility.
Yeah.
They feel like they feel that way,
They know there's a responsibility. It's this horrifying, and that's what I think is actually like is one of the most beautiful things about this episode, is that it is this endless twinge of these emotions where you want them to stay, but you know they can't.
Yeah.
And it's horrifying, like in the most tragic and beautiful way. Amanda Rose Munoz, who wrote this episode, knows how to rip my heart out. Like, God damn.
I mean, for this is the one place where Wrecker can eat his fill. Like, it's got everything. It's got everyone is happy here.
Set the record down on his data pad. I have not heard her laugh like that in some time.
Yeah.
When Shep Hazard says, as a father, you couldn't ask for a better place to raise a child.
Yeah.
Omega, on the lake with Liana, gets to have a friend her own age.
Yeah.
She gets to be a kid. All things that the Batch want for her.
Yeah.
But they can't have. It's the moment of pure bliss. While the Empire's gone around oppressing the galaxy.
Yeah.
It's one of the most touching things of the season for me. Because how much of a what do you call it when something because of how much of a paradox it is.
Yeah.
Because of how contrasting and how diametrically opposed the two like feelings are. And of course we have a tsunami in this episode once every 30 years. But from what I understand, again, once every 30 years, it's not common. They won't have to worry about that again for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you'd think that they'll have some more preparation for the next time,
Yeah, but the next time won't be for decades. That's the thing. So if a flood, you managed to save everybody from no injuries, no deaths, some property damage. If that's the worst thing that happens in an episode, that's incredibly tame. Next to things we've seen about.
And they even have more, and they even have in some capacity, it's kind of weak, but they do have more of an onus to stay now. They could be like, we have to help rebuild, you know?
Yeah, I think they do that for a while. But
yeah, so
the point is, but the point is that, you know, the stakes this episode, what actually happens tragically in this episode,
yeah,
pretty minor for a Bad Batch episode.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, leave being a hero means you're not really living the life that you really want.
Yeah,
ultimately,
that's
throughout Star Wars, throughout fiction. That's what makes being a hero resonant. You know, is that
is that it involves
it's
that
sacrifice. You know,
it involves giving up something, and
like it wouldn't be a good story. It wouldn't be a good character.
If
there's a character who just has everything. He's like super selfless and awesome and brave and helps people so much, but they also like don't give up anything, you know?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be compelling if they don't have to struggle.
Yeah.
And figure out what they want to do with their life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what the Batch are going through here. So
yeah, it's an extremely rare episode of the Bad Batch, or of just generally of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Where we actually get to explore what it's like in peacetime.
I was struck by how maybe the wrong word. Like just seeing a part of Star Wars where it's actually 100% peacetime. People are, for the most pre-tsunami, people are relaxed, happy, prosperous, harmonious. Life is good. It's so unfamiliar. It feels so unfamiliar as to Star Wars that it feels almost uncomfortable, you know?
But in a way, I think that's what makes it so genius.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that it puts us in a place that we're so unfamiliar with it and makes it still feel like Star Wars.
Oh, it's absolutely intentional. It's absolutely intentional that we're feeling this way because of this episode.
There's such beauty in that. I think that's why Pabu is one of my favorite episodes of this season.
It's a banger.
I'll wrap it up by saying that Pabu, again, as we mentioned, is my third favorite episode of this season. Probably my third favorite episode of The Bad Batch.
Wow.
I don't know where Reunion from season 1 fits in there, but probably top 5, top 10 maybe episodes of Batch. But mostly all my favorite episodes are this season. But yeah, Pabu narrowly edges out the Outpost for me, and then Metamorphosis for my rankings.
I mean, it's Pabu by a comfortable margin. I would say it's Pabu. Then the Outpost is amazing as well. The Outpost is up there, and then Metamorphosis, kind of a mixed bag for me. But I like all these episodes. They're all net positives.
They're fantastic episodes. Rounding out with Pabu it just breaks me. Pabu breaks me.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be it for this episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy. Next week we're going to be finishing up the series. The series for now, at least. You know, season 3, we'll figure out when we're gonna do that. But we're ending up gonna have to end up doing a lot of things, a lot of weird things out of order on In a Galaxy these days, and we're prepared to do that. But yeah, next episode, Tipping Point, The Summit, and Plan 99. And then the episode after that is our retrospective, and then we finish the Bad Batch. I guess now is a good time.
It's really flown by
to announce our next season. After the Bad Batch season 14, there will be obviously Tipping Point, Summit, and Plan 99, and then there will be the retrospective episode.
Yeah,
and then we'll do a special episode, and then we'll get into season 14 of Star Wars in the Galaxy, which I am so happy to announce is going to be covering Jedi Fallen Order. So both of us are very excited to dive into that game. And trust me, we're going to be... we already have some ideas for guests for Fallen Order that I'm very excited about. I'm not going to say anything because we haven't confirmed anything yet. But but you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Threads and Hive in a Galaxy Pod. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We will be there. If we're not, email us, swinagalaxy@gmail.com. And watch Epic Confrontations. This is going to come out after Hyperspace. We really hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure we're going to have a blast doing it. I'm sure by this time you saw that Jacob was in it, so I'm hoping he does great in it. I'm hoping he makes this show this channel.
I'll make us
show
proud. I'll put up a fight.
Which is weird to say because I'm hosting this and I wrote other questions, but we're gonna ignore that one. But yeah, Connor. But yeah, you're gonna have to face the wrath of me, myself, the Chikiti man, and Boop. So
I'm so fucking scared.
yeah,
I love, look, I don't have to say how much I love Star Wars because I've been doing this for what we've been doing this for 3.5 years.
Yeah,
I feel like it's not that it's not that I think my credentials are in jeopardy, but I do not hang my hat on being particularly good at trivia. This is known. I have not had great outings in past trivia Star Wars events. So hopefully I can turn it around this time. We will see.
but anyway, until then, may the force be with you
Always.
always.